Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, February 25th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and we begin tonight with new hope for hundreds of thousands across our county who will soon become eligible to receive a COVID-19 vaccine. That's good news, but there's a big caveat. Will the supply be there to vaccinate everyone? KPBS reporter John Carroll says that's a question now facing the county and healthcare professionals.
It's a question without an easy answer, and it's not new, says Scripps Chief Medical Officer for Acute Care, Dr. Ghazala Sharif.
We had the same thing happen when the tiers were open up to age 65 and up. We had just at Scripps alone over 200,000 patients that qualified age 65 and up, and initially we only had 10,000 vaccines.
That same situation could very well happen again in the coming weeks, and it's likely to be worse. By the middle of March, hundreds of thousands more people in the county will become eligible to get the vaccine. Governor Newsom says as of March 1st, teachers, law enforcement, food service, and agricultural workers will become eligible. Then, on March 15th, another enormous group of people, those aged 16 to 64 with certain pre-existing health conditions, will be able to get a shot. Dr. Sharif says the county, along with healthcare systems, are doing their best to distribute and administer vaccines. But she says they could do much better if only they knew how much they were going to get.
We will find out today what we are getting on Monday or Tuesday. So we can plan as much as we like for next week, but if the vaccine doesn't come in, we just don't know what else to do.
There is promising news when it comes to supply. Pfizer says it will be able to deliver 13 million doses per week across the country within the coming weeks, and Moderna says it will be able to provide 40 million doses per month by April. But Dr. Sharif says once people with underlying conditions become eligible next month, the floodgates are likely to open, and doctors will be put in the difficult position of deciding whose underlying conditions will make them eligible and whose won't. Still, on KPBS Midday Edition Thursday, Assistant Medical Director of Family Health Centers, Dr. Christian Ramers, said there is some hopeful news, especially when it comes to making sure vaccines are given in an equitable manner.
There's a federal program that is going to ship vaccines directly to community health centers. We haven't seen a dose arrive yet, but we're encouraged by the fact that those will be coming again soon.
Plus, it appears the Johnson & Johnson vaccine will get FDA approval within the next few days. Good news, not so good news, just part of what makes this era of COVID so tumultuous. John Carroll, KPBS News.
And we have more information at kpbs.org. Just click on the Vaccines tab on our homepage and you'll find a searchable map with clinic locations and links to make an appointment if you're eligible. Vaccinating all school staff is a big part of San Diego Unified's plan to bring all students back to campuses on April 12th. The plan is a hybrid model with some days in-person learning and others online. The San Diego Education Association is returning to the bargaining table tomorrow to discuss what that will look like. The vice president of the union says they understand not all families feel safe sending children back for in-person learning, especially those in hard-hit areas, including South and Southeast San Diego.
We need to keep those families and those students in mind and make sure that any hybrid option that we return to, when it is safe to do so, is not going to negatively impact the students and the online learning program that has been in place since the beginning of the pandemic.
The county will also need to return to the red tier for COVID infection rates before the targeted reopening date. Marking a milestone, President Joe Biden commemorating the 50 millionth vaccine shot today. Nadia Romero explains the push for more Americans to get tested as the threat looms of a potentially dangerous surge in COVID variant cases.
50 million shots in just 37 days since I've become president.
President Joe Biden marking the 50 millionth vaccine shot Thursday, while also noting the challenges in vaccinating the entire country.
The story of this vaccination campaign is like the story of everything hard and new America does. Some confusion and setbacks at the start, and then if we do the right things, we have the right plan to get things moving.
Another challenge, vaccine hesitancy.
Can somebody come and hold my hand, please?
Touting the administration's federal retail pharmacy vaccination program, Vice President Kamala Harris visiting a Washington, D.C. pharmacy, encouraging Black Americans to get the shot.
There's so many reasons to get vaccinated, right? And so we can all get back to seeing all of our family members and being together.
The CDC warning the U.S. could see a surge in cases, driven in part by the rapidly spreading variant first identified in the UK. Despite the emergence of new mutations, experts say spread can be prevented by continuing mitigation efforts.
Let's continue to mask up, not let our guard down.
Studies also show some variants may be responsive to the vaccines already on the market, while vaccine makers look to boost efficacy against all strains of the virus.
The best way to put down these mutants is to decrease transmission and to vaccinate people.
A third vaccine could be days away from FDA emergency use authorization. Johnson & Johnson's vaccine doesn't need refrigeration and only requires one shot for 72% protection. In Washington, Nadia Romero, KPBS News.
In his first official trip, new U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin visited with sailors and Marines here in San Diego. The USS Nimitz strike group recently wrapped up an 8.5-month deployment to the Western Pacific and the Middle East. For a time, the sailors and Marines had been in isolation as a result of COVID-19 mitigation measures. The duration of Nimitz's time away was part of the reason for Austin's trip to talk to sailors firsthand. The San Diego Police Department is instituting new rules on how it will police future protests. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler tells us this comes at a time when civilian oversight of the agency is changing hands.
Over the summer, during a nationwide uprising against police violence, San Diego police officers fired tear gas and pepper balls at protesters and threw some into vans. The police said they were doing so in response to water bottles and rocks thrown at them. But the policing of protests left people who wanted to express their First Amendment rights feeling as if they were all being targeted by police, just for being at a protest. Now, new rules by the San Diego Police Department are trying to better coordinate how the police department manages protests by laying out a chain of command and when officers can use munitions. It also lays out how police will determine what response is necessary while planning for protests, after the department has been accused of over-aggressive policing of protests against police brutality. The new rules are the subject of a hearing on Thursday evening in front of the Commission on Police Practices, which is meant to provide civilian oversight of the board. But this board is in the process of being dissolved and replaced by a new, more powerful board after voters passed Measure B this fall. Ariana Federico is an organizer with Mid-City Can, which pushed for that measure. She believes that further oversight of the police department and protests is needed, even with the new guidelines.
It's not new. Even like for there to be a response like that, where there are stricter either or more regulations to how people practice speech or protest. And I hope that it doesn't really come down to the interim commission of reviewing what's currently happening.
The new Commission on Police Practices is set to be formed by the City Council within the coming weeks.
A commission that San Diegans voted for in November, we need to ensure that there is funding so that we're able to pay staff and so that these commissioners have all the tools to really bring accountability and transparency to the commission that we voted for in November.
Federico says it will be up to the community that elects the new board members to decide its priorities. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria announced new partnerships with nonprofit groups as the city works toward the goal of ending homelessness.
In the midst of a pandemic where folks are worried about their personal health and their finances because of the recession, homelessness continues to be what I hear the most about from San Diegans. And so today's effort is really an indication of some of the work that we're doing. Adding a few beds here, adding some more nights here, adding some more outreach here. All of this adds up to a city that I believe can end chronic homelessness.
The new shelter and outreach programs are for people between the ages of 18 and 24 who are experiencing homelessness or transitioning from state custody or foster care. According to the most recent count, that group makes up 10% of the city's unsheltered population.
From coming from the streets to being in a stable living environment, it altogether really boosts everything for you. If you take advantage of all the services being provided, you will succeed. And I'm a walking, living testimony of it.
Using state funds, the Housing Commission has contracted with Urban Street Angels, San Diego Youth Services, and the San Diego LGBT Community Center. The money will provide additional beds at shelters, support a hotel voucher program, and fund outreach programs. An update now on a controversial plan to close a neighborhood pool in Oceanside. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne tells us what the City Council decided.
Nuestros barrios necesitan Brook Street Pool, or our neighborhoods need Brook Street Pool, was the message protesters wanted to send to council members ahead of last night's City Council meeting. It seems council members got the message. After a 4-1 vote, the plan to close Brook Street Pool died.
We live in Oceanside. We need to be able to have facilities that will address these needs.
Mayor Esther Sanchez opposed the proposal the first day it was presented, stating the closure would take from the poor to give to the rich. If the new El Corazon Aquatic Center presents a financial deficit down the road, the council may consider closing the Brook Street Pool in the off-season. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
UC San Diego is on track to complete 100,000 COVID-19 tests on students 2 months into the winter quarter. The positivity rate on campus is just 0.2% compared to San Diego County's average of 5%. The university increased mandatory student screening from twice a month to once a week and installed test kit vending machines across campus. It also has more testing capacity than any other university in the state, with 2 labs processing about 5,000 per day. In the past decade, San Diego Unified School District has made progress toward reducing the long-standing inequities its Black students have faced. But there's room for growth. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong spoke with students, families, and experts about the Black student experience at San Diego Unified and what needs to change when students return to a post-pandemic classroom.
I grew up here in Southeast San Diego for a majority of my life.
Makfeda Abdullahi is the daughter of Ethiopian immigrants who came to the United States as refugees during the Somali Civil War. Abdullahi says growing up, her parents had high expectations for her, but she quickly realized that her teachers didn't have the same expectations.
So that's when I started to realize, I know they won't see me the same, so I needed to start doing better in school and really take it serious. And if I didn't, they'd probably just see me as, that other Black student who doesn't care about school, doesn't want to listen, and, just to reinforce those stereotypes.
She said her middle school experience was especially discouraging. She and her Black peers felt isolated and constantly monitored. But she said she toughened up once she got to Morse High School.
I tried my hardest, talked to my counselors, put me in those AP classes. I don't care if you won't let me, I'm going to keep trying. So that's when I really started getting into school, but the experience was definitely not easy.
Today, she's in her first year at UC San Diego, majoring in political science. Abdullahi's path was difficult, but she's part of a positive trend at San Diego Unified. Pedro Noguera, the dean of the Rossier School of Education at the University of Southern California, led a 2019 study of the district that found it had increased both graduation and college readiness rates for Black students.
That's a really powerful factor because that is bearing on college eligibility rates. So you've seen the number of Black students who are eligible for admission to Cal State and the University of California go up. And that is, I think, not an insignificant data point.
Yet, while the district made these strides in academics during outgoing Superintendent Cindy Martin's tenure, results for school discipline have been mixed. The suspension rate for Black students dropped from 9% in 2013-2014, Martin's first year, to 8.6% in 2018-2019. But Black students are still more than 3 times as likely to be suspended than their white peers, according to the most recent data. Luana Richmond, a former school board candidate from Southeast San Diego, said it's a sign that Black students are still seen as outsiders at schools.
When you think of a child as your
your neighbor, your community member, your family member, they could be your child. The way that you see them is different than if you see them as like those kids.
But as the district begins to bring students back to campuses, both Richmond and Noguera see an opportunity to rebuild trust between educators and students from all marginalized backgrounds. Noguera said overemphasizing academics and making up for what's been referred to as learning loss is not the path to an equitable post-pandemic public school system.
I would prioritize relationships. I would prioritize bringing some joy to learning, the arts, music, so that kids want to be in school. And then I would really focus on getting kids engaged as learners before we focus narrowly on assessment.
San Diego Unified officials say they are taking steps in that direction. Shortly following the summer's protests for racial justice, the district revised its grading policy to emphasize mastery of material over things like attendance and work habits. The district also revised school policing policy so that district police officers are called only for the most serious offenses like sexual assault and possession of a weapon or a controlled substance. Abdullahi, the UC San Diego student, says she's hoping her younger siblings might get to experience a more inclusive curriculum and school environment.
There's still so much history that needs to be covered and so much history that Black high school students deserve to learn about their own people. And within AP US history, they just brush over, the major topics, Jim Crow, slavery, So there's so much more work that needs to be done, but it's a step in the right direction for now.
Joe Hong, KPBS News.
Today, the House passed the Equality Act to include LGBTQ protections in the nation's labor and civil rights laws. The legislation amends existing civil rights law to explicitly include sexual orientation and gender identification as protected characteristics. Local Democratic Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs says as the sister of a trans brother and a gender nonconforming sibling, the bill is personal to her. She also celebrated the legacy of a San Diego activist who recently died.
This was made possible by all those who marched and protested and raised their voices, like San Diego's own Larry Baza. Last week, we lost Larry to COVID, and today would have been his 77th birthday. Larry demanded justice and equality and dignity for all.
3 Republicans joined Democrats in voting yes, but local Congressman Darrell Issa was not among them. He issued a statement claiming the bill would strip away civil rights protections from women and girls and force religious groups to go against their beliefs. Mayor Todd Gloria, San Diego's first openly gay mayor, urged the Senate to pass the bill, saying it offers long overdue protections to members of the LGBTQ community. Some Costco workers will soon be making more money. The wholesale chain is raising its starting rate for hourly workers to $16 an hour. The pay hike should take effect next week. Costco has around 180,000 employees in the U.S., and 90% of them work hourly. This comes as Democrats in Congress try to rally support for increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Vanessa Yurkovich takes a look at the issue and its potential impact.
I used to work two jobs a day. I had to support my family.
Nishad Siam used to make $10 an hour, working from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. to scrape by. Now he makes $18 an hour cleaning homes. That allows him to not only cover his bills, but take time to care for his disabled father.
I work only 35 to 40 hours a week, and I'm making more than 2 jobs. And now I can give some time to my family. I can help my dad when he wakes up.
The federal minimum wage has been stuck at $7.25 for over a decade, but 29 states and Washington, D.C. pay more than that. D.C., where Siam works, is the highest at $15. The same city where Congress is currently debating raising the federal wage to that same level.
No one should work 40 hours a week and live in poverty.
President Biden wants that sweeping move to be part of his COVID-19 relief plan.
We did it here in D.C. We were like the first major jurisdiction to get it done. Federally is the way to go about it, to do it the quickest to the most people.
A $15 minimum wage by 2025 would lift nearly 1 million people out of poverty, but could also cost 1.4 million jobs, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office.
Small businesses, and especially the ones that have the hourly rate,
Sometimes they handle like lower margins. And at the end, they have to transfer that cost. So they have either to cut hours, right? Or cut employees or increase prices.
But some small businesses like Little Sesame in D.C. have made the math work. The restaurant paid employees $13.25 an hour when it opened in 2018, but quickly pivoted to the new $15 minimum when it took effect this past summer.
We knew that this $15 mark was coming, and we made sure that the model supported it, that was an integral part of our business. It was, it was the right thing to do, and it was a good thing for us as a business.
But during the pandemic, more than 400,000 small businesses had closed by September. At the same time, support for workers has grown. 67% of Americans back raising the minimum wage.
Just under a year ago, we decided to declare these people to be essential. And I think the right thing to do is to pay them $15 an hour, a living wage.
Maisha, give me. A living wage means a world of difference for Siam. He's saving money for the first time. He has plans to go back to school for a career in IT and for a reunion from Bangladesh, a year in the making.
I'm saving because of future, and I just got married 1 year ago. So
congratulations.
Thank you. And my wife is coming soon. Hopefully by 2022, she'll be here.
And that was Vanessa Yurkevich reporting. We just got word that the minimum wage hike to $15 an hour cannot go into the COVID relief package under Senate rules. So the debate continues. If you think your power bill is high, be glad you're not in Texas. Tens of thousands of people are being hit with enormous bills after that crippling winter storm. It's because of wholesale electricity providers that vary prices based on demand. One woman says she was charged $13,000 for just 7 days of power.
This is robbery. This is robbery. And if your whole mean is to make a profit while people are suffering or going through something, that's just not right.
The Texas legislature is now holding investigative hearings on the state's power grid failure and its manager, ERCOT. Company officials admit they were just minutes away from total collapse in their system. Critics argue they've been raising red flags over the Texas system for years.
After a bit of a breezy start to our Thursday across the region, those winds will be calming down as we head into our Thursday night and our Friday. Not really going to see any rain chances across the area either. We stay dry right through the weekend, which I know we need the moisture, and we do have the chance for a little bit of some rain as we head toward the middle of the week next week. But there's still some question marks with that, and we still have a couple of days to get through here before we can fine-tune that forecast, which tonight looks clear. A little on the cool side. We dropped to 46 in San Diego, Mount Laguna 39 for us, Oceanside. We're getting back into the mid-30s. Escondido 38 for us. We do have this weak frontal boundary that's going to be dropping southward here for our Friday. Not a lot of moisture along it, so we keep things dry. It is going to cool us off a little bit, but temperature is still pretty seasonable for us here as we head into our Friday. Notice Futurecast through our Friday morning, not really showing anything at all. We've got a lot of sunshine on the way for us here as we're wrapping up the week. Just a few passing clouds. San Diego, upper 60s, close to 70 for us. El Cajon, 77. Ramona, we get to 73. Mount Laguna, 53 for us, which is just a few degrees below normal. 5-day outlook for the coast, keeping some sunshine around for the next 5 days. Watch out for some fog as we head into our early Saturday morning. Temperatures pretty much holding steady in the mid to upper 60s. You get into the inland, a little bit of some ups and downs in the temperatures here. We go from the mid 60s for our Friday, the mid 70s for our Friday, into the lower 70s for Saturday and Sunday. Notice by Tuesday of next week, we're in the upper 60s. Wednesday looks to be the day, though, when we could see some of those isolated showers. To get into the mountains here, 53 for our Friday, upper 40s for Saturday, mid 30s. Certainly colder for our Sunday here, but we'll still have some of that sunshine around. We get into the deserts, temperatures in the 70s through Saturday before we cool back into the 60s Sunday. Then we're right back up into the 70s as we head into our Monday. For KPBS, I'm meteorologist Adam Del Rosso.
If you plan to see the Padres play in spring training, tickets sold out in a day. And now County Supervisor Jim Desmond is asking Governor Newsom to allow fans to return to Petco Park. Desmond wants limited attendance, roughly 25%, in time for opening day. He says many other cities have changed the way they operate to keep fans safe, and he's confident the Padres can do the same. Allowing fans back would also be a major plus to bring back thousands of jobs and help businesses in the ballpark area.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the fight for 15. Debate continues on raising the federal minimum wage amid growing inequality. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's another look at today's top stories. Over the next few weeks, hundreds of thousands more people in San Diego County will become eligible to receive a COVID-19 vaccine. Healthcare professionals tell KPBS that right now they only get a few days' notice of how much vaccine to expect, making it challenging to plan how and where to distribute it. Both Pfizer and Moderna say over the coming weeks they'll be able to greatly ramp up production. And tomorrow, the Teachers Union and San Diego Unified are returning to the bargaining table to discuss the district's plan to bring students back to campuses on April 12th. It's a hybrid model with some days of in-person learning and others online. The San Diego Education Association says it wants to make sure the schedule does not negatively impact those who stick with online learning full-time. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.